Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Todd Bishop, and I serve as the Wildlife Bureau Chief for the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. You are attending one of 18 local meetings being held across the state this week to recap the recently completed hunting and trapping season and discuss any proposed changes to hunting regulations for next year. We refer to these meetings informally as hunter listening sessions, not because we want you to listen to us, but because we are here to listen to you. We have a few short recorded presentations to begin with that provide statewide summaries of wildlife population status and harvest from last season, as well as to present any proposed changes to hunting and trapping regulations for next year. After that, the rest of the meeting is for us to hear from you. In the room with you this evening are local DNR wildlife biologists and conservation officers that manage wildlife habitats, conduct population surveys, and enforce hunting regulations in your area. Together, all of you in this room participate in the annual management of wildlife populations, which is why these local meetings are so valuable. We have at least one staff person taking notes at your meeting to record your comments and summarize the discussion. If you have more specific or lengthy comments that you wish to submit after the meeting, please do so. Comments received via email will be weighed equally to the comments made during the meeting. We time these meetings soon after the hunting season so that we have time to collect comments on proposed changes and gain approval from the Natural Resources Commission by early summer so the changes can be incorporated in the printed hunting regulations. This time period coincides with the legislative session, and there's often proposed legislation regarding hunting regulations at the time of these meetings. We understand that this might come up during your discussions. We want to be clear that we do not carry those comments forward to lawmakers, and we do want to remind you to work with your legislators directly on any input you have regarding proposed legislation. Also, if you know of anyone who's unable to attend one of these meetings, the recorded presentations will be posted on our website beginning next week. We will continue to accept comments via email, and the appropriate address is included in the recorded presentation. Again, thank you for your participation. Have a great meeting, and I look forward to seeing the summaries of your discussions.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Todd Bogenschutz. I'm the Upland Game Biologist for the Wildlife Bureau of the Iowa DNR. I'm going to give you a quick overview of our upland game populations and harvest for the past year, and also conclude a little bit with our upland game habitat programs. Moving on to populations, we had a pretty mild winter in 21-22. If we go back to last March, snowfall was generally below normal, only about 15 inches. So we should have had good hen survival for both pheasants and quail across the state. We saw cooler than normal temperatures during the nesting season and some impactful rains in parts of the range, which likely impacted pheasant reproduction. We saw our best pheasant counts up in the northwest part of the state, kind of the red circle on the map. We expect a very good hunting up in that part of the state. And as far as quail, our southwest region posted some of the better quail numbers. You can see in the table of our August roadside count data that both for pheasants, partridge, and cottontails, our numbers were essentially very similar in 2022 to what we saw in 2021. Quail being the one species that kind of showed a significant jump this past year compared to the year before. And so wouldn't surprise us that our harvest numbers kind of mirror what we saw in our roadside counts here. Moving on to harvest, the numbers for this most recent hunting season we're just wrapping up are not available. Our cottontail season remains open through the end of February this month. So we haven't even mailed any postcards to estimate our harvest yet for the 22-23 season. But at least with pheasants and partridge, we're expecting numbers to be very similar in 2022 to what we saw in 21. We expect quail and cottontail numbers maybe to be a little bit higher. That's just based on the trends on the roadside counts that I just showed you. And we expect dove numbers to probably mirror kind of the 10-year average. If you look at our table there in the figure, you can see that for most species, our harvest in 21 was above the 10-year average. We expect numblers to be similar to 21, so again, above the 10-year average. So Populations are trending the right way. You can see we have some figure here that were posted to our Facebook site that generally people had a very good opener, especially up in northwest Iowa, kind of where our roadside counts indicated that we had very good bird numbers. Moving on to our habitat programs. One of the programs that the staff within the Wildlife Bureau uses to improve habitat and populations within Iowa is the Conservation Reserve Program, or CRP as it's commonly known. We especially like the CP38 practice, which stands for State Acres for Wildlife Enhancement, sometimes referred to SAFE as short. We have multiple programs within the state under SAFE. One's targeted at creating pheasant habitat. We have another SAFE targeted at creating quail habitat. We have a gaining ground SAFE, which is targeted at a lot of our declining grassland songbirds. And lastly, we have an early successional forest neotropical migrant bird SAFE focused in northeast Iowa on birds like ruffed grouse and woodcock that like early successional forest next to grassland habitats. So the blue areas on the map kind of show where these practices are eligible in the state. These regions of the state have the best opportunity to recover these species. We encourage anybody that has farmland or agricultural land that they control, that then they want to see increased populations of these species, to reach out to our website there at iowadnr.gov/CRP. You can download our fact sheets and get more information on those programs and who within our agency to contact for more information. And I'd like to wrap up with hunting opportunities for upland game within Iowa. We have more state wildlife management areas and walk-in public hunting areas than ever before. The two signs here in the graph show how we designate those lands. So the green signs are public lands that are owned by the DNR that we manage for wildlife. And the orange signs would be our public walk-in areas, so private land open to public hunting. Our IHAP program is approaching 50 square miles statewide. It's funded through a USDA grant. Our most recent grant was for $1.5 million, and we spent all that money in 2022. It's met with great success both among landowners and hunters. We'd like to continue it. We're hoping that they continue funding this program in the next Farm Bill. Congress is working on the next Farm Bill this year. We hope to have it passed this year or perhaps in 2024, so we continue the IHAP program in Iowa. And I'll conclude with an important date for pheasant hunting in Iowa. Our first hunting season was in October of 1925. That means year after next, in 2025, will be our 100th year of pheasant hunting in Iowa. And the department's already working on a way to highlight this important milestone for upland hunters in Iowa during our 2025 season. If you have any comments about my presentation tonight, feel free to send them to the email address at the bottom of the slide. Thank you for your time tonight.
Good evening. This is Orrin Jones. I have a brief update for waterfowl hunters this evening. In 2022, the Fish and Wildlife Service resumed population surveys for waterfowl. If you remember, population surveys were canceled in 2021 and 2020 due to COVID restrictions. What the surveys in 2022 found were that duck populations were lower than in 2019, the most recent survey effort. However, we expect that habitat conditions in 2022 improved in late spring, and therefore there should have been more young birds in the fall flight than the previous couple of years. Here in Iowa, much of the state experienced abnormally dry conditions in 2022. So this may have constrained hunter access and/or bird use. Our fall waterfowl migration surveys indicated that duck numbers were relatively similar to the most recent 10-year average. However, we did see some noticeable declines in mid-November and mid-December. The 2023 hunting season dates will be similar to the 2022 hunting season dates. In 2022, a new registration process for HIP was introduced. Remember, HIP is a requirement for all migratory game bird hunters. That includes dove hunters, duck hunters, goose hunters, rails, coot, snipe, and woodcock. There are 3 ways to register. You can register on the internet at iowadnr.gov. You can register using your mobile phone at Go Outdoors Iowa mobile app, or you can call the DNR customer service at 515-725-8200. Below it on the right hand side is a screenshot of the updated Go Outdoors Iowa mobile app, where the HIP registration is available right on the home screen. This is a big improvement from 2022 and should make it easier than ever for hunters to HIP register. I suggest HIP registering immediately after you purchase your 2023 hunting license, and if you carry a paper license with you in the field, remember to print your HIP registration number on that license. Instructions are available on the DNR's Migratory Game Bird webpage. One last topic for waterfowl hunters to be aware of is avian influenza. There was a widespread outbreak of highly pathogenic avian influenza across North America in the late winter and spring of 2022. Here in Iowa, we experienced widespread suspected cases of avian influenza as depicted in the map below. This also affected a wide range of species, including nearly all species of waterfowl, but also water birds and raptors, and even some spillover into mammals. So there's a lot of uncertainty associated with this recent strain, and so further vigilance and precautions are warranted. This includes increased hygienic practices when you're handling waterfowl, and also making sure you stay away from any birds that look sick or are behaving abnormally. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.
Good evening, trappers and hunters. My name is Vince Elvisizer. Happy to be with you here this evening to give a short overview about fur bearers. Starting with fur bearer populations, a summary for Iowa. The fur market remains fairly weak again this year. The only 2 bright spots for the most part is that bobcat pelts are worth more and beaver pelts went up a little bit. Castor seems to be doing okay, but maybe down slightly as well. The good news is that nearly all fur bearer population levels in Iowa are stable to increasing. So the trapping pressure is generally pretty low out there. Those of you that have been out trapping this past fall probably noticed that. The exception, we continue to see muskrats and the gray fox population in decline mode. This is just a table that shows the annual statewide harvest for the past 6 years. For many of the species on here, you'll notice that harvest is down, mainly because trapping effort and predator hunting effort is lower because of the weaker fur market. Looking at the red circles on this table, you can see that the raccoon harvest has dropped significantly. If you look there at 2018, the annual harvest was 115,000 coons. And then a couple years later, in 21-22, the overall annual harvest was down to 34,529 coons. The long-term average harvest of raccoons going back to 1930 is 124,000. So we're considerably below that long-term average. Moving to the right there a little bit, the next red circle, just pointing out that the gray fox harvest is down into the single digits. we'll be getting our overall harvest totals here for 22-23 by mid-May or mid-June, so we don't know what that is, but it's just of note to see that. Moving to the right, those final two red circles over there in the coyote column, you can see that from 2017 to 2020, we had record high coyote harvest, anywhere between 15,000 to 18,000, and pretty stark, drop off there from 2020 season. We had a harvest of 15,087 coyotes. And in 2021-22 season, we had 3,724 coyotes in the harvest. So that's a pretty big drop. As many of you know, the coyote pelt market dropped considerably. The pelt value dropped considerably beginning there in 2021 and again this year. So those were a few things to point out to you that I thought you might find interesting with the overall harvest for fur bearers. Looking at this regional map, just kind of thought you might find it interesting to kind of get a Midwest perspective on license sales for fur harvesters. We're using the year 2020 because that was the most recent human population census. So there's a orange number in each state there. That's the number of resident licensed fur harvesters in 2020. And then the blue number there is simply the human population for each of those states. So it's notable that you see Wisconsin there has a fairly high number of licensed fur harvesters compared to their human population. And Iowa does not do too bad either, with 14,851 licensed fur harvesters there per capita with our human population. And then the other thing to notice there is the double asterisk by the orange numbers there is simply to point out that it is a partial count for those states due to the license structuring with the hunting license versus a straight up fur harvester license. So it's not quite an apples to apples comparison, but it still gives you an idea of where we kind of rank or fall out there with our neighboring states. It was a surprise to me, for example, to see a state like Minnesota be fairly low, even a state like North Dakota to be fairly low. I just wanted to give you a quick update. Some of you may know that we started a gray fox pilot project this past fall. And the reason for doing so is that they're a valuable and understudied animal in the Midwest. And, as mentioned earlier, we do have a concern for their population decline. And so there's a need to understand several basic aspects of about gray foxes, such as cause-specific mortality, habitat usage, and disease threats. Some of that exists and is known in the literature, but we don't have a lot of current Midwest gray fox research in which to draw upon, and so we'd like to understand that better. This past fall, we had some net collars that we were hoping to deploy onto gray fox to begin a pilot project to learn more about them. We relied on private trappers to try to catch them, even with a reward. Unfortunately, none were caught at this time anyway, so that is an update on that. Proposed changes coming up for the 23-24 fur harvest season. Normally, we haven't had too many changes to the season, especially the season dates. However, we are proposing at this time to extend the regular fur harvest season 1 month beginning next year. So the season would start, if it went through, would go into effect next year, and this new season closure would be February 28th rather than January 31st. So we're talking about extending the regular fur harvest season for all fur species 1 month. And then the second part of that is we're proposing to have a continuous open season statewide for coon hunting, and 2 types of trap methods allowed as well. That would be either live catch cage traps or dog proof traps. In addition to that, we are we are looking or considering to propose adding as a separate thing here to add in a few counties into the bobcat harvest zone. However, we're kind of waiting to find out more if the governor's executive order is going to affect that or not, or affect our ability, whether we can propose that or not at this time. We'll have to find out more here over the next few weeks on that front. That's all I have. Again, thank you for your time.
Thank you for taking the time to be here tonight. My name is Jim Coffey, and I am the forest wildlife biologist located out of our Sheraton office. We will be reviewing the 2022 statistics for wild turkeys and squirrels. I appreciate any comments and field observations you may have that will continue to help us manage these species into the future. For the two huntable species of squirrels, fox and gray, harvest was estimated to be approximately 102,000. This is a 34% increase from 2021. Roughly 17,500 people hunted squirrels in Iowa, which was around 7 to 8% of our licensed hunters. Hunters average approximately 2 squirrels per trip and a yearly harvest of 6. Rules have been consistent for squirrel hunting for many years. We enjoy a long hunting season with little competition. Squirrel populations are impacted by forest maturity as well as acorn crops. Most people that call about squirrels are concerned of the lack of fox squirrels, which may be associated with maturing overstocked timber. Historically, Iowa sustained a harvest of over 1 million squirrels per year. Harvest rates have stayed consistent through time, but hunter numbers have declined. Moving on to wild turkeys. Wild turkeys provide 2 hunting seasons in Iowa, a spring and a fall option. The spring season is by far the dominant of the 2 seasons. In 2022, there was a 2% increase in reported harvest of 11,933 birds. The number of issued licenses was up only slightly at 0.6% to 52,796. Hunter numbers seem to be stabilizing from the 2020 COVID bump that most states saw. Fall turkey hunting provides a second opportunity to hunt wild turkeys in Iowa, but it is not nearly as popular of an option. Harvest was down 24% this year at 425 birds being reported. We average about 7,000 to 8,000 licenses issued each fall. 11 counties reported harvesting more than 10 birds, with the highest county being Dubuque at 17. The 2022 Summer Brood Survey saw 8 of the 9 agricultural regions with above 5-year averages. The Central and East Central regions showing the highest reported number of poults per hen in the state. Southeast Iowa reported its 3rd year in a row of above average numbers. Total number of reports was down this year, so I remind people that they can participate in this survey each July and August. Ruffed grouse are the other species I work with. We have very little historical data on grouse. We will be working at a survey this spring for the public to report drumming grouse. Grouse are a byproduct of early successional forest habitats, and these have been lacking in Iowa for many decades. Again, the Forest Wildlife
My
Program
name is Chase Elliott, and I'm the State Deer Biologist for the Iowa Department of Natural Resources.
Forest Wildlife Resources.
Here I'll provide an update of our annual deer harvest, population trends, diseases, and potential changes for the upcoming deer hunting season. Let's start by looking at statewide deer harvest numbers from the 2022 to 2023 hunting season. Overall, we saw increases in both harvest and license sales in nearly every season. Our total statewide reported harvest was 109,600 deer, which represents a 7% increase compared to the prior season. We also saw a 2% increase in overall license sales, primarily due to the expansion of our January antlerless season, which was held in 20 counties across the state this year. Now you can see our deer population model. Here in Iowa, we're very fortunate to have several independent data sets which are collectively used to inform what direction we believe the statewide deer population is trending. Examples of these data sets include number of deer vehicle collisions, spring spotlight survey counts, bow hunter observation surveys, and reported buck harvest. Each of those data sets are represented in this figure with their own trend line. You'll also notice the thick black line, which represents an estimate of our deer population statewide. As you can see, this model shows our statewide population is stable to slightly increasing. Additionally, the population appears to be within range, though slightly below, our management objective, which is indicated by the 0% value on the y-axis and represents an estimated statewide population in the mid-1990s. Let's switch gears and discuss chronic wasting disease, or CWD. CWD belongs to a class of diseases known as transmissible spongiform encephalopathies, or TSEs. I know that's a mouthful, but TSEs are basically diseases that can be spread from animal to animal and result in sponge-like holes forming in the brain. This class of diseases includes similar diseases such as mad cow disease, which affects cattle, scrapie, which affects goats and sheep, and Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease, which affects humans. CWD is not spread by a virus or bacteria, but rather is caused by prions, or misfolded proteins that occur in the brain. CWD can be spread by direct or indirect transmission, meaning animals can contract CWD through contact with other diseased animals, as well as by picking up CWD prions from the environment. Most importantly, CWD is 100% fatal, meaning that deer are unable to recover from this disease. Now, this isn't to say that every CWD positive deer will die from CWD, because as we all know, a hunter or vehicle may kill that deer first. However, in the absence of these other mortality factors, CWD will lead to the death of any infected deer 100% of the time. Each year, we sample deer in every Iowa county for chronic wasting disease. These samples come primarily from hunter-harvested deer, but also include some roadkills as well. This year, we sampled over 5,000 deer across the state. So far, 93 of those deer have tested positive in initial testing, with 82 of those deer being confirmed through additional testing. Unfortunately, we detected chronic wasting disease in 3 new counties this year: Lucas, Grundy, and Jasper County. As the asterisk shows on this slide, the Jasper County detection has only gone through initial stages of testing, and we are still awaiting further confirmatory results. The numbers you see in parentheses are the detections from this year alone, next to the running total of all detections over time in that county. We also continue to hold CWD incentive hunts in Northeast and South Central Iowa. All of this information and more can be found on the online CWD surveillance dashboard, which can be found on the Iowa DNR website. Here is a map that includes all of the positive detections across the state this year alone. Black circles indicate where first detections occurred in new counties. Now, you may be wondering how our deer management strategy changes in areas where CWD is detected. First, we drastically increase surveillance in those counties to get a better idea of local prevalence rates. When CWD is detected in a new county, we aim to manage the population at the low end of our management objective. Now, what this means is that we try to keep the population at a level that limits disease transmission while still offering ample hunting opportunities. If CWD is detected in an area that we believe is already at this level, we simply continue to monitor the disease along with deer numbers in order to continue making informed management decisions. Another important disease that affects deer is epizootic hemorrhagic disease, or EHD. EHD is a viral disease spread by biting insects called midges. In Iowa, this disease primarily affects deer during the warmest months of the year, typically from June to September. Unlike chronic wasting disease, EHD is a viral disease that is not 100% fatal, meaning deer are often able to recover from the disease and survive. In fact, decades of research in other regions of the country, such as the Southeast and Northeast, show that over time, deer herds become less affected by EHD due to building an innate resistance. Hemorrhagic diseases are relatively new to this area of the country, meaning that deer in Iowa have had less time to build this resistance, resulting in higher mortality rates. Fortunately, 2022 was a very mild year with respect to EHD in Iowa. Over the last decade, we average approximately 200 reported mortalities per year from across the state. In 2022, we only received 17 reports across 9 counties, primarily in southern and western Iowa. Next, I'll spend a little time discussing the proposed changes to the upcoming deer season. First, we plan to add Lucas County to the list of population management January antlerless season counties. Now, what makes this season different from the excess tag January antlerless season, which is held in any county with leftover antlerless tags, is that population management season counties allow any legal method of take during this season, whereas the excess tag season limits hunters to only use centerfire rifles. We are proposing county antlerless quota decreases in 8 counties, primarily along western Iowa, where deer populations are in need of recovery. We're also proposing increased quotas in 15 counties, including 7 counties in north central Iowa that did not previously have county antlerless tags available. Finally, we're recommending that the buck-only restriction on any sex tags during the first firearm season be removed in Kossuth and Humboldt counties, and added in Woodbury and Crawford County. To wrap things up, here is a map that shows the proposed changes across the state that I just went over. The bottom number in bold represents the potential quota change, and the top number represents what the final quota would be given that change. Any questions or comments regarding any of the information that I went over in this presentation can be directed to the email address shown at the bottom of this slide. Thank you for your attendance and participation in these important listening sessions.
Hi, my name is Anna Buckart-Thomas, and I'm the avian ecologist with the Iowa DNR's Wildlife Diversity Program, and today I'd like to share some information with you about Iowa's raptors. There are 25 species of raptors in Iowa. That includes hawks, owls, falcons, vultures, osprey, eagles, and kites. This is the group of species that are predatory, and they're known for their strong talons and their hooked beak. They eat meat, anything from small mammals to other birds to fish to reptiles and amphibians. Some pursue live prey, and others are scavengers or eat dead carrion. And so these are an important group of species in the ecosystem, acting as natural pest control and as our cleanup crew. In Iowa, a number of our raptors are listed on the threatened and endangered species list. Barn owl, short-eared owl, northern harrier, and red-shouldered hawk are listed as state endangered species. Long-eared owls are threatened, and the bald eagle and peregrine falcon are considered state species of special concern. There's also several rules and regulations that apply to raptors. The Federal Migratory Bird Treaty Act protects raptors and other migratory birds from take, including their feathers and their eggs. The Federal Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act gives extra protections to eagles specifically, including their nests, and state law also protects birds. The Iowa DNR has worked to restore several species of raptors in Iowa, one of which is the peregrine falcon. This species disappeared from the eastern U.S. in the 1960s because of the chemical DDT, which softened eggshells and made them break so that there was no reproduction occurring. And so between 1989 and 2000, the Iowa DNR hacked about 150 captive bred falcons in cities around the eastern part of the state. Hacking is this process where we take juvenile birds and we let them kind of grow up in an enclosure where we can have them imprint on the area so that they hopefully return to breed there as adults. We used a similar process to expand ospreys in the state. This species was also experiencing declines because of DDT. This species is also known to have a slow propensity to expand its range, and biologists were finding that in areas where the species was already established, populations were becoming overcrowded and their reproductive output was decreasing in those overcrowded areas. And so the Iowa DNR worked with Minnesota and Wisconsin to take young from those wild populations and hack them in Iowa to help expand the range of the species in the Midwest. With the help of volunteers, we've been able to track and monitor these populations that we've helped to restore in the state. Peregrine falcons have nested since the early 90s, and their populations have continued to grow since. In 2022, we had 16 active nests with a minimum of 21 young produced. You can see on the map here that most of the birds are located along the Mississippi River. Some of these are in natural cliff nesting areas along the bluffs. Others are on human-made structures such as tall buildings and bridges and smokestacks from energy plants. We also have several nests more central in the state, including in Des Moines. We've also been able to track this osprey population and its recovery since reintroduction. This species started nesting in the early 2000s and has continued to increase since. In 2022, we had 32 active nest sites with a minimum of 35 young produced. You can see in this map that we have sort of several clusters of populations of osprey. One of those is around the Saylorville Lake area in Polk and Dallas counties. We also have populations along the river from Cedar Rapids up to Waterloo area, and then in Dickinson County. There's also several birds out in the western part of the state. All of these clusters are kind of around those areas where we hacked the birds to help expand that population. Another species that was affected by DDT but has been able to naturally re-establish itself in the state is the bald eagle. This species was removed from the federal endangered species list in 2007, and we've been monitoring this population. We're able to monitor this population both in winter and during summer. And so in winter 2022, we had a record of over 5,000 wintering bald eagles spending time along Iowa's rivers. We have currently over 400 nests across the state with birds nesting in every county. In the figure in the upper right, you can see our success rate of nests over time. And in 2022, we had the lowest success on record, or the highest failure rate, with close to 30% of nests failing to produce young this year. We believe that this may be associated with the outbreak of highly pathogenic avian influenza, which largely impacts waterfowl, but since eagles in particular are a scavenging raptor, they would likely have eaten those infected waterfowl and may have passed that on to their chicks. So we think that there's an association there. A huge thank you to all the DNR volunteers who helped monitor these nests. We had over 130 volunteers participating in raptor monitoring this past year through our volunteer wildlife monitoring program. If you'd like to learn more about this program or sign up to help volunteer, you can check out our website. If you'd like to follow wildlife diversity news in general and learn more about the species and projects we work on, we have a newsletter that comes out once or twice a month, and you can sign up for that on our website. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Craig Kutz, the Law Enforcement Bureau Chief with the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. I've been with the department 36 years, and I'm excited now to serve in the role as the Law Enforcement Bureau Chief since last August. Looking forward to working alongside my 86 field officers in the field, the men and women that work every day helping to protect our resources of Iowa, as well as working hand in hand with our stakeholders and our license holders out there in the field. We look forward to an exciting future and working well hand in hand together.